I'm Ellie Merritt.
And I'm Mike Jackson. Tonight's forum is being moderated by NBC4's Colleen Marshall. She'll be joined by representatives from both sides of Issue 2. There will also be a panel of journalists from Columbus, Cleveland, and Cincinnati who will ask the tough questions about Issue 2's potential impact on Ohioans.
If you watch TV, you have seen the ads for and against the initiative. But if the ads have left you confused, you're not alone. Our goal is to clear up the confusion surrounding Issue 2 so you can get the facts you need and make an informed decision before you cast your ballot.
Without further delay, here's NBC4's Colleen Marshall live on the campus of The Ohio State University at the Fawcett Center for Tomorrow.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Ohio's only statewide forum focusing on Issue 2. I'm Colleen Marshall of NBC4 in Columbus. From Youngstown to Toledo, Cleveland to Cincinnati, we are here tonight to get you the answers you need before you vote on Issue 2, the Prescription Drug Initiative. We are coming to you tonight from the Fawcett Center on the Ohio State University campus. There is a live audience with us tonight. They have been cautioned against shouting or applauding, except for right now, as we welcome our panel of journalists and representatives from each side of this issue. We can applaud now. If you are confused about Issue 2, you are not alone. So before we hear from representatives of both sides of this issue, we want you to see and hear the actual Issue 2 ballot language you will see next month. This is the proposed state law, and it would require the state of Ohio, including its state departments, agencies, and entities, to not pay more for prescription drugs than the price paid for by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs, and would establish that the individual petitioners responsible for proposing the law have a direct and personal stake in defending the law, require that state to pay petitioners reasonable attorney fees and other expenses, require the petitioners to pay $10,000 to the state if the law is held by a court to be unenforceable, and limit the petitioner's personal liability to that amount, and require the Attorney General to defend the law if challenged in court. Are you still confused about what Issue 2 might mean for your family? Well, we have representatives of both sides here with us tonight. Representing the Vote Yes campaign is Matt Borges. From 2013 until 2017, he served as chairman of the Ohio Republican Party. During his tenure, the GOP swept statewide races and hosted a Republican presidential debate and the 2016 RNC convention. Matt has 2 minutes for his opening remarks.
Thank you. Ohioans need lower drug prices. In less than a month, voters will decide on State Issue 2, the Drug Price Relief Act. This is an initiated statute, not a constitutional amendment, that prohibits the state of Ohio from purchasing prescription drugs for a price any higher than what the Department of Veterans Affairs currently pays. Why the VA? Well, 25 years ago, drug companies got caught red-handed overcharging veterans through the VA program. Congress acted. They imposed a federally mandated 24% discount on all drugs sold to the VA. This program has worked extremely well in keeping medical costs down for veterans. Now those drug companies are ripping you off. And if you're waiting for Congress to do something about it now, well, don't hold your breath. So Issue 2 puts the power in your hands to instruct the politicians in Columbus to start taking these issues seriously. And when Ohio gets the same prices for medicine that the VA currently gets, taxpayers save $400 million, drug prices come down, and every Ohioan benefits. It's really very simple. But some voters are understandably confused because the drug companies are spending $3 million per week on television ads trying to tell Ohioans that Issue 2 is something that it isn't. You'll hear from 2 representatives of the drug companies campaign tonight, and rest assured, the companies who pay them will do everything you can imagine, and some things you probably can't, to rig the system against you and make sure the price of medicine stays as high as possible. Let me give you an example. The cost of an EpiPen has soared to over $600. When Issue 2 is passed, the state will pay less than 1/3 of that amount. And when you take those savings over the 17,500 drugs available in the VA plan, taxpayers win big. No wonder the drug companies want to fight this issue so hard. So here's the question Ohioans will decide this November. Do we want the drug companies to win again and leave everything the way it is now? Or do we want to put the power in the hands of the people to bring drug prices down for all Ohioans? Whose side are you on?
Thank you, Matt. And now we're going to be hearing from the opponents to Issue 2. We have two representatives of the Vote No campaign. Barbara Edwards was the director at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services during the Obama administration and also served as director of Ohio's Medicaid program under Governors Voinovich and Taft. And giving the opening statement tonight for the Vote No representatives, Dale Butland. For nearly 2 decades, he worked for former U.S. Senator and astronaut, the late John Glenn, in a variety of capacities, including press secretary and chief of staff. He now works in politics, government, and communication. Dale Butland.
Everyone agrees that Ohioans need access to affordable drugs. But nearly every expert who has studied Issue 2 says it won't fix the problem and would only make things worse by raising drug costs for most Ohioans and reducing access to needed medicines for some of our most vulnerable people. Those experts include a former state budget director, 3 former Medicaid directors who served under both Democratic and Republican governors, and more than 80 organizations representing veterans, business, labor, and over 30,000 Ohio doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and hospitals. And every major newspaper that's taken a position has also come out against Issue 2. At this debate, Barb Edwards and I will explain why Issue 2 is unworkable, why it won't save money for taxpayers, or lower costs for consumers. But facts aren't what the yes side wants to talk about. From them, you'll mostly hear anger. Anger about drug prices, anger about drug companies, and anger about those who run them. They'll tell you to ignore the experts, ignore the doctors, the nurses, the pharmacists, the veterans, and all those newspaper editorials. The yes side wants you to ignore the facts and vote your anger instead. But voting out of anger can be dangerous, and cutting off your nose to spite your face always has ugly consequences. So listen carefully to what both sides say this evening, and then ask yourself 3 simple questions. Is Issue 2 more likely to lower or raise drug costs for you and your family? Would it likely increase or reduce your access to needed medicines? And is Issue 2 likely to save money for taxpayers or cost you millions more than you're paying now? Yes, we all need access to affordable drugs, but Issue 2 isn't the answer. In fact, it's a prescription for disaster.
Thanks to both of you. And we are joined tonight by a panel of experienced journalists who will be asking some pointed questions of representatives of the 2 sides of this issue. From WOSU Public Broadcasting here in Columbus, Mike Thompson. From WLWT-TV in Cincinnati, Cherie Palello. And from WKYC-TV in Cleveland, Chris Ty. Now, I'm going to be directing the first question tonight to Issue 2 supporter Matt Borges. Matt, this campaign has been going on for months now, and we've seen a lot of commercials from both sides. Many are under the impression, because of the Vote Yes commercials, that this issue would give every consumer in the state a price break on prescription drugs. Now, you are also claiming that the state will save $400 million a year. What is the specific factual basis for either of those claims?
Well, actually, if you don't want to take my word for it, take the drug company's word for it. They're the ones who have come out and said in a trade publication, PharmaExec.com, where they are talking to each other, that in fact what would happen is if the state of Ohio were to enact a policy like this, that it would create an immediate demand for the same pricing to be made available to other states, the federal government, and private entities as well, meaning private insurers and other major purchasers of prescription drugs in the private side. And so that's what the drug companies are afraid of. That's what they don't want Ohioans to have any ability to do. And it explains entirely why their campaign is 100% funded by drug companies. Because the drug companies know what this would do to their profits, and that's what they don't want to see happen. So you've got to remember, if you want lower prices for prescription drugs, you have to vote yes.
All right, and we do want to point out we have timed answers tonight, a minute for each side, and then a 30-second response for the original person who's asked the question. So, Dale, your rebuttal to that?
Yeah, well, first of all, the only so-called study that ever backed up the yes side's $400 million savings claim was when they paid $9,000 to a couple of law professors to do, neither of whom had any background in state budgeting. But yesterday, the Ohio's current state budget director completely exploded this $400 myth claim when he found that Ohio's Medicaid program, which accounts for 75% of the drugs the state of Ohio buys, is already getting discounts equal to or better than the 24% discount enjoyed by the VA, in which issue 2 makes as the benchmark. But the yes side can't afford to give up this bogus $400 million claim for a very simple reason. Their whole campaign revolves around the assertion that if you pass issue 2, everyone's drug prices are going to fall and the state will save hundreds of millions of dollars. But once people figured out that this only applies to drugs purchased by the state, they realized that this won't reduce drug costs by a single penny for any of the people who don't get their drugs through state programs.
And Matt, 30 seconds to respond.
Of course, that isn't what the state budget director said. He said that this program would save millions of dollars. He also said that if successfully implemented, that there would be state savings. Of course, what the drug companies want to do is make sure that this isn't implemented. So the voters need to speak loudly this year and in November when you go to vote. By the way, voting started today, so you can vote any time between now and November, and you vote yes on issue 2. And we hold the politicians' feet to the fire to make sure that this is implemented correctly. And just like the state budget director said, there would be savings for the state of Ohio.
Mike Thompson from WOSU has the first question for the vote no side.
For the no side, it does apply only to state agencies, but there are many state agencies, and right now they all pay different prices for prescription drugs. Doesn't it make sense for all of these Ohio agencies to pay the same price?
Well, it depends on what that price is. The fact is that the programs today do have different statutes, they have different regulations, they have different federal bases or don't have a federal basis at all. The Medicaid program, which does represent 3/4 of the state's purchasing, because this initiative doesn't apply to anybody that isn't covered by a state-purchased health insurance program, basically. Already enjoys discounts from Congress, just like the Veterans Administration. Most of the state programs don't have that benefit of having a 23.5% or 24% discount mandated by Congress. And then on top of that, uses its leverage in the marketplace to negotiate additional discounts, just like the VA does. I think that it certainly would be good if the state programs can get the best price possible. I've spent my career helping to find better drug pricing for the Medicaid program, so I think that's fine. But everybody pay the same price might not be as good a price as you can get with your market power.
And yet again, without actually specifically answering that question that she was just asked, the budget director said in his report that came out last night, we saw it this morning, that actually all these other state agencies, whether it's Ohio State University, their hospitals, higher education institutions, other programs around the state, don't get the VA price. And so of course the VA price would be lower, and of course people would save money. It's another opportunity for the drug campaigns, the drug companies campaign, to do what their representatives are being paid to do, and confuse voters and try to talk about any other issue besides the issue that's at hand here. Saving money for prescription drugs from the state of Ohio, reducing our spend so that we have more money in our budget to do other things, and then ultimately do what the drug companies themselves admit would happen, which is that drug prices would come down for everyone else.
All right, Cherie Palello from WLWT in Cincinnati has a question now. Oh, I'm sorry, you get your 30-second response.
Yeah, well, Matt did a valiant job of trying to obscure a fundamental fact. They want you to believe that while the Veterans Administration gets a 24% mandated discount, the state of Ohio doesn't get any discount, it just pays full price. But the truth is that under federal law, Medicaid drugs, which again account for 75% of the drugs Ohio buys, gets a 23.1 federally mandated discount. That's less than 1% difference from the 24% that Matt's ballot initiative would put into law. In addition to that, Ohio negotiates additional rebates and discounts. And that's why the state budget director said that savings are unlikely, Matt, from the Medicaid program, which accounts for the overwhelming percentage of drugs Ohio buys.
All right, now, Cherie, sorry about that.
Matt,
A mother in Cincinnati who has a child with a chronic condition asked me recently what kind of a price break she can expect with her private insurance. Isn't it true that Issue 2 will not help her and others with private insurance? And isn't your commercial featuring a mother talking about the cost of EpiPens deceptive? Because anyone on private insurance will not be impacted by Issue 2.
Of course it isn't. And again, I'd go back to what the drug companies themselves have said about this issue. What they have said is it would cause an immediate demand in the marketplace, undoubtedly would cause an immediate demand in the marketplace for prices to come down. That when the state of Ohio takes the lead and the citizens of Ohio take the power into their own hands, that it would bring drug prices down for everyone else, even if you're on private insurance. That was their analysis. I hope you take my word for it tonight, but if you don't, take theirs. They're the ones who are saying that. And again, it explains everything about why they fight so hard to defeat reforms like this, because they know what it would mean. Just to go back to something that Dale said a second ago about how the state of Ohio already gets the best prices it possibly can. First of all, no one believes that because it isn't true, and the OBM analysis confirms that. But even if it were true, why would they need to threaten Ohioans that they'd raise prices on everyone else? Because that means prices were coming down, and we've got to hold their feet to the fire to make sure they don't do that.
And Dale?
Yeah, so I think the question deserves at least one answer. The truth is, this ballot initiative only applies to drugs that are purchased by the state government, which means, as you rightly point out, everyone who does not get drugs through state programs, everyone with private insurance, employer-provided insurance, seniors who rely on Medicare, veterans who get their drugs to the VA, people with no insurance at all. None of them are covered, and Issue 2 would not reduce their drug cost by a single penny, including for that mom who was trying to buy an EpiPen. Her cost for that EpiPen would not go down by a single penny if Issue 2 passes.
And you have 30 seconds to respond.
Again, you go back to what the drug companies themselves have said. They're the ones who admitted that drug costs would come down for everyone. They are the ones who called it a pricing disaster for the entire U.S. drug industry, and an industry that has made $711 billion in profits over the last 10 years, doing things like overcharging government, doing things like overcharging Medicaid $1.2 billion for EpiPens. So when they sit here and out of one side of their mouth say it won't save money, but on the other side of the mouth say they're going to have to raise prices on everyone else, understand what their real motivation is. It's their profits.
And Chris Ty is here from WKYC in Cleveland.
Thanks, Colleen. Question for the no side. Dale, at the beginning you said to ask yourself 3 questions, and one of them was, what might this mean for the budget in your household? So a question for opponents like yourself of Issue 2. Talk about prices ultimately going up for all consumers if Issue 2 passes. Is the idea here, from your perspective, that pharmaceutical companies plan drastic price hikes if they don't get their way on this?
No. What I'm saying is simple economic fact, right? If you tell any company, whether that company makes drugs or they make television sets or they make automobiles, that they have to sell their product to a certain segment of the population at a low price, what happens to prices for everybody else who are not covered under that edict? Cost shifting isn't some nefarious scheme that's been cooked up by the greedy drug companies, as Matt would have it. It is basic economics. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Somebody always has to pay, and that's a concept that Matt used to understand when he was chairman of the Ohio Republican Party before someone started paying him not to understand it.
So let me just ask you, if I can, Colleen, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Cost shifting is a phrase you used there. Is that a yes, then, about pharmaceutical companies planning drastic price hikes?
No, look, I don't speak for the drug companies. They are a part of our coalition, but they are one entity in the coalition. I don't speak for them. I'm not telling you that they're going to plan any drastic price hikes. I'm just telling you that cost shifting is a basic economic fact of life.
And Matt?
Well, Dale may say that he doesn't speak for the drug companies, but he's 100% paid for by them because they're the ones that are funding his campaign. Let me just, Chris, answer your question a couple ways. First of all, there's a program already in place where there's a large federal agency that already gets this mandated discount. It's the VA, and it's working very well there. And those cost-shifting things didn't happen when the VA got that mandate from Congress because policymakers and voters spoke loudly enough to make sure that didn't happen. And one thing that's extremely important to understand is all these negative impacts that the drug company representatives always love to say what might happen to Ohioans. None of those things are in this legislation. Those are all things that the drug companies would do to Ohioans if we dare cut into their profits. And so you have to understand those ads they run saying 2/3 of Ohioans will see their prices go up. Those aren't campaign ads. Those are hostage videos because they're trying to scare you into believing that those prices would go up when they raise them.
All right, do you have a 30-second rebuttal?
I'd like to share is that, in fact, the reason we have a VA statute at the federal level is because when Congress gave Medicaid its discount, prices at the VA did go up because the pharmaceutical companies backed away from some of the voluntary discounts that they had been negotiating with the VA because they didn't want that to be the target price for Medicaid. So Congress had to step in and say, no, we want basically the same deal for those programs. The other thing I'd like to say is that the way the state, for example, could achieve compliance with this initiative would be to lower what we pay to the pharmacies. And those costs to the payment to the pharmacies could go below the cost to the pharmacies of providing those drugs, which would cause pharmacies to either stop participating with state-purchased drugs or raise their prices to their other customers to cover those losses.
All right, before we switch on to the next topic, I'm going to exercise the power of the moderator since you've twice brought up who their campaign is paid for. I think listeners probably want to know who your campaign is paid for, so we'll give you 30 seconds to explain who's backing your campaign financially.
The AIDS Healthcare Foundation has been supporting our campaign and funding our campaign. And I want to point out something about tonight's forum and tonight's debate. This was supposed to be a discussion between Michael Weinstein, who the other side, who the drug company's campaign has been viciously attacking on TV, and a CEO of one of the drug companies. But the other side refused to do that. They're the ones who have things to hide. They don't want to produce a drug company CEO to actually discuss these issues here tonight. We were happy to bring Michael Weinstein here, but the other side is all too happy to hide behind their lying negative ads and attack him, but they won't face him face to face, and that's something they should be ashamed of.
But Michael Weinstein is funding your campaign, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Well, no, he is not. The AIDS Healthcare Foundation is.
Which he chairs. Which he heads.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want everyone to have all the information. All right, and now, Mike, we're going to switch gears a little bit. He's talking about access to health care as well as pricing.
So, Matt, we've talked a lot about pricing, and the drug companies, they have to make money. They're for-profit companies, and they have to meet their bottom line. So couldn't issue 2 result in an increase in prices for drugs, and that might hurt access that veterans have or that the regular folks would have for drugs if their prices go up? Can you guarantee that the access to drugs for veterans and other folks on state programs will remain as they are right now?
Well, again, Mike, I'd point out that did not happen to the VA when Congress imposed this pricing structure on them. And so there is an example of this out there working very, very well. You're talking about an industry that has made $711 billion worth of profits over the last 10 years. And by the way, they reinvest those profits into things like stock buybacks. They reinvest those profits into advertising that we see until we're one of only 2 nations on the planet that allows drug companies to advertise on television. You see those ads all the time, they have 10 seconds of an ad and then 20 seconds of disclaimers. Those ads, those are the kinds of things that drug companies are focused on. Why? Because they know it helps them, and they know it boosts their profits if they operate their businesses that way. And so instead, in a very highly regulated industry, where if they really tried to go against the will of the policymakers and the voters, a lot of negative consequences could happen to them. They're not going to do the things, not going to follow through the things that they're threatening Ohio voters with now.
The answer to your question, Mike, is no, he can't guarantee there will not be price hikes for veterans and increased copays, and I'll tell you why. Because the VA itself says there would be. Last year, when Mr. Weinstein put the same virtually identical version of this ballot initiative on the California ballot, where it went down last year, the VA did an issue brief that talked about the impact of the VA if something like Issue 2 passed in a state like California or this state of Ohio. And they concluded that the VA's drug costs would likely go up by nearly $4 billion a year because of these voluntary discounts that would go away. Anthony Principe, who is a former Secretary of Veterans Affairs under President George W. Bush, has written a letter saying that this ballot initiative is a risky scheme that threatens to raise copays and costs for Ohio's 800,000 veterans, and that's why virtually every major veterans organization in this state is opposed to Issue 2 and is part of the No Coalition.
That is, in fact, not what the analysis was in California, and the drug company campaign knows that. Instead, what we have is a situation where we have one campaign that wants to return $400 million to taxpayers, and we want to make sure that drug prices come down so consumers have more money in their pockets to do the things that they need to do, hopefully be able to afford their prescriptions if they need them. What the other side wants to do is make sure all that money goes to the drug companies, that they keep it all. So we keep everything exactly the way it is, and real Ohioans, real Americans don't get any relief at all.
We thank all of you for your comments so far. We're going to take our one and only 2-minute break in this program. We'll be right back with you. Every day, trying to find answers, asking Welcome back to our Issue 2 forum here at the Fawcett Center on the campus of The Ohio State University. We are talking tonight to representatives from both sides of Issue 2, the controversial and some say confusing issue that you will be seeing on the ballot in November. I'm going to lead off the half-hour question to Dale Butland and the Vote No representatives. Viewers from across the state all agree the drug prices are unreasonably high. As an example, no one from the pharmaceutical industry stepped forward when Mylan started charging $600 and $700 for an EpiPen. Doesn't the drug and pharmaceutical industry have itself to blame that it's vulnerable to citizen-led initiatives like this because of the pricing and its failure to self-police?
Well, first of all, I would say I'm not going to defend Mylan. Mylan, by the way, is not a part of pharma, even though the other side always likes to, and they have nothing to do with this campaign or its funding. But I will say this. I understand that people are upset about drug prices. I get that. But what I think it's very important for voters to remember is that whatever you think about the drug companies, whatever you think about the prices they charge or the salaries that they pay, none of those things are on the ballot this fall in the state of Ohio. What is on the ballot this fall is a very specific piece of legislation that every expert who has looked at it says will redound to the detriment of our state and its people. And I know that Barb Edwards has something she'd like to add as well.
The thing I just want to underscore is that I actually have spent much of my career fighting for lower prices for the Medicaid program and being fairly successful at that. My objection to this initiative is that it doesn't work. That's my objection to this initiative. It's not implementable, and it does not work.
All right, your time is up, and we're going to have a response now from Matt Borges.
You see what the other side is doing? They're trying to tell us, trying to tell you and me that we can't understand how this would work. Well, here's what I understand. I understand Ohioans would save $400 million if we enact Issue 2, if we vote yes on Issue 2. And I understand why the drug companies wouldn't want to do that. I understand that drug prices would come down across the state for Ohioans, and I understand why the drug companies wouldn't want that to happen either. And so this is a situation where the drug companies have a system that is completely rigged against the everyday voter, and they don't want anything to change because then they can keep all the money for themselves. And that's a situation where we have a campaign right now where we have one side that is trying to bring prices down and trying to save taxpayers $400 million. And if you want to do that, you have to vote yes on Issue 2. And remember, it's the big greedy drug companies, the Yankees, basically, or we're the lowly Indians just trying to fight our way through here. But the New York Yankees of the world are trying to win again and keep prices as high as they possibly can.
And your rebuttal to that?
Just some facts. The initiative says that the state can't buy a drug if it can't achieve at its net cost the lowest price paid by the VA. The lowest price paid by the VA is not a public number. It is not knowable. Secondly, as states attempt to implement, there's nothing in this initiative that requires anybody to give the state the price that the VA is getting. So when the state attempts to implement this, they're going to have to raise co-payments, they're going to have to drop prices to pharmacies, and they're going to have to actually not cover some drugs.
We are going to transition and talk a little bit about outside influences on the campaign, and the question goes to Cherie.
Matt, let's start with you. And Colleen had mentioned this a few minutes ago. The man behind the issue heads the AIDS Healthcare Foundation that runs a string of pharmacies, including some right here in Ohio. The pharmacies get drugs at discounted rates and bills insurance companies at a higher rate. How much does the foundation stand to benefit financially if voters vote yes for Issue 2?
It's the exact opposite, actually. The program that the AIDS Healthcare Foundation runs, and you're right, they have a facility right here in Columbus. They have one in Cleveland. They serve 17,000 patients here in Ohio. They serve hundreds of thousands of patients around the country and around the world. They help bring generic drugs to the continent of Africa. This is a humanitarian who the other side, the drug companies campaign and their representatives, have been mercilessly slandering on television ads with some very, very questionable ads that the other side candidly should be ashamed of. But it's not a matter of what they would gain. As a matter of fact, their mission is to make sure that they provide access to affordable care regardless of people's ability to pay. And what we know, what AIDS Healthcare Foundation is very well aware of, is that the #1 impediment to getting people that care is the cost of prescription drugs, because it causes insurance companies to not want to pay for that. So this is an opportunity to further that mission and bring those prices down to get more access to care for Ohioans.
So no one is saying that Mr. Weinstein and his foundation haven't done some good things, Matt, but before you canonize Mr. Weinstein as St. Michael, I think voters ought to know about the darker side to Mr. Weinstein. Here in Ohio, the Cleveland Clinic and the Cleveland City Club both have sent your campaign cease and desist letters in the past week after you misrepresented their views by implying that they support Issue 2 when in fact they don't. And Mr. Weinstein was guilty of some dirty tricks earlier this year in the state of California that were very similar, that caused the mayor of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office, and the Los Angeles Times newspaper to call him out for misrepresenting their positions. So I think the kinds of campaign tactics that this fellow has used over the years and is using right here in the state of Ohio, to say nothing of the fact that he's also filed 52 lawsuits against government agencies in 7 different states, including 3 in Ohio, is something voters ought to know as they're trying to determine who's telling the truth and who isn't on Issue 2.
Let me tell you what Dr. Cosgrove said, the CEO of the Cleveland Clinic. He called drug companies unethical. He said that they're raising the cost of price 10% a year, and that the clinic's cost for prescription drugs went up 19% last year alone. He has said that the drug companies are trying to take advantage of taxpayers. And so, and the City Club has said that they want to create conversations for democracy to thrive. Look, I understand why the drug companies campaign don't want those things out in the public, but those are very important points for voters to know about so they can make an informed decision.
Continuing our conversation here about outside influences. This is for the no side, Dale and Barbara. Your opponent says that it's very simple, that drug companies want to keep their profits up. I have a question from Marty Jones from Dayton. We asked our viewers to weigh in, and here's what Marty asked. Why are the big pharmaceutical companies spending so much on fighting this bill? Are they simply worried about their profits? I know you've said throughout the night, Dale, that you are not here paid by the drug companies, but you are here representing their point of view. How do you answer Marty's question?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'd say, as you point out, I don't speak for the drug companies, but if I had to guess, I would guess that they might be not wanting issue 2 to pass for a couple of reasons. Number one, the VA discount was always only supposed to be for military veterans in honor of their service and sacrifice. It was never intended to apply to everybody, and I'm guessing the drug companies may not want that precedent set. Second, I'm going to guess that like every other industry in America and maybe the world, they don't like artificial price controls. But part of the reason that we're having to spend the kind of money that we're spending is because we need to do an education campaign. Matt says you vote for issue 2, everybody's drug costs will come down, you'll save a lot of money. We have to explain to people why something that sounds good would actually redound to the detriment of our state and its people, and education is expensive.
I want to read you a quote. Pharma and the big drug companies will do anything to preserve what they regard as their right to gouge consumers and stall meaningful relief for average people. This particular ploy is put forward in an attempt to give the impression that they're concerned with affordable prescription drugs, but in fact, they're not. You know who said that? Dale Butlin said that. And so he knows who he's dealing with. He understands what is at stake here and who these people are and what their motivations are. He has said so himself. You can't unring that bell, Dale. And so, unfortunately, he's on the record as saying that and this is exactly what the drug companies are going to try to do to Ohioans. We have to stand up as voters. We have to speak as loudly as we possibly can that the federal government isn't fixing this problem, that the politicians in Columbus aren't fixing this problem, and it's time for the people to take the power into their own hands and instruct our policymakers, instruct those politicians in Columbus that it's time to start taking these issues seriously.
As that 15-year-old quote from me that Matt just dredged up demonstrates, I've been involved in the fight for affordable prescription drugs for a good part of my working life. But unlike issue 2, which won't help anybody, that 2003 AFL-CIO initiative I was involved in led to the creation of Ohio's Best RX discount card, which is still in effect and still helping millions of Ohioans afford their drugs. And another thing, Matt, in that effort, unlike issue 2, we didn't exclude 2 out of every 3 Ohioans, and we didn't ask any Ohioan to pay legal fees for any California person and his lawyers.
And Mike?
Matt, it's been mentioned here that this was on the ballot just last year in California, and voters rejected it by about 850,000 votes. And Tom Payne from Ohio wants to know, if the voters from California did not see fit to pass this, why does it make sense for Ohio?
Tom, thank you for your question tonight, and I appreciate you asking it. It brings up a number of good points. First of all, I wasn't involved in the California campaign last year, and I don't want to armchair quarterback. I couldn't tell you anything about how it went. What I do know are a couple things. First of all, Ohio is the ultimate bellwether state, and so we have the opportunity in Ohio to lead the way for the nation and for other states across the country to start getting better prices for prescription drugs. But also, it comes down to the fundamental question. Why did the drug companies spend $126 million trying to defeat this issue in California? Do you think it's because they care about patients? Or do you think it's because they cared about protecting their profits? That's what they did in California, and they're up to the same thing in Ohio this year. If you're tired of seeing the ads, the lying ads that the other side, that the drug company representatives are putting on the air, it's because you should be. They're spending $3 million a week. Why? Because you think they care about patients? Absolutely not. They're trying to protect their profits.
Yeah, the truth of the matter is Mr. Weinstein brought this ballot initiative to Ohio after he couldn't get it passed in his own state last year. Now, Matt will tell you, oh, the reason it went down in California was because the drug companies spent all this money. But what he doesn't tell you is that every single major newspaper in the state, including liberal papers like the LA Times and the San Francisco Chronicle, all editorialized against issue 2, just like every Ohio newspaper that has taken a stand has also editorialized against it. This idea that, look, there is a reason why no state in the country has passed issue 2. It was bad for California, and it's also bad for the state of Ohio.
And a final thought?
It's
on
simple
that?
common sense. Simple common sense. Why else would the drug companies and their representatives who are here tonight and from their campaign spend all this money to try to defeat this issue? Is it because they care about public policy? Is it because they're down at the State House every day fighting for what's right for Ohio citizens and patients? Or because they've rigged the system to try to keep prices as high as they possibly can, and if they can defeat an issue and save $700 billion worth of profits, they're going to do anything they can and say anything they can to get that done?
Well, we've heard a little bit tonight about legal costs, and we want to delve into that further because that is half of this ballot issue. So Cherie has a question about legal costs now for the Vote No side.
Dale, you started to touch on this, so I'm going to direct this at you. Isn't it a good idea to have someone outside of politics, specifically the 4 petitioners who have a stake in Issue 2, to have a vested interest in defending the law?
No, because this has never been a part of any Ohio law or any Ohio ballot initiative. This is completely unprecedented. Typically what happens when a law is passed in the state and it's under challenge, the Attorney General defends it. And in fact, Issue 2 says that the Attorney General shall defend the law if it's challenged. But in a new wrinkle, it gives the 4 sponsors, 3 of whom work for Mr. Weinstein, gives them the unprecedented right to hire their own attorneys in addition to having the Attorney General do his work, and makes Ohio taxpayers pay their legal fees whether they win or lose, and with no cap or limit of any kind on the amount of money that taxpayers are on the hook for. And given Mr. Weinstein's track record of suing government agencies, this could get very, very expensive.
And Cherie, last year in the state of Nevada, the voters passed a law. They enacted a statute that called for more reasonable background checks on people in the state of Nevada for the purchase of guns. And then the politicians decided to ignore that. And if that were to happen in a state like it's happened in California, if that were to happen in the state of Ohio, right now there's no recourse in the law for any citizens to bring an action in front of the Supreme Court. What this language does is it codifies that so that people would have standing in order to bring those cases, so that politicians can't just decide to ignore the will of the voters. And when Dale and his drug company representatives go on their rants about lawsuits, think about the lawsuits that your clients have filed. Thousands of lawsuits around the state, or around the country, trying to keep states from being able to implement laws. We know that that's their plan when Issue 2 passes this year, and we've got to stand firm and make sure that we defend the law, we defend the will of the people.
You know, I just mentioned a minute ago that Mr. Weinstein's filed these 52 lawsuits, including suing the state of California twice so he could continue to charge them higher fees for the prescription drugs he sells. I don't think we've pointed that out yet. Mr. Weinstein runs a foundation that makes 80% of its money selling, you guessed it, prescription drugs. And then he also sued the Ohio Department of Health earlier this year when he didn't get a contract award that he thought he should get, or actually I guess it was a grant, because his application was late and was full of mistakes. And now this serial litigator and legal bounty hunter wants Ohio taxpayers to write him a blank check to cover his attorney fees without any cap or limit. You know, Matt, a lot of Ohioans are born again, but we weren't born yesterday.
Next.
I wonder if we want to give Matt an opportunity when we talk about a serial litigator and a bounty hunter. How do you react to that?
Well, obviously, first of all, the fact that the drug companies are the ones who have actually filed thousands of lawsuits around the country. But this gets back to the fundamental issue of this campaign. The drug companies and their representatives, 2 of whom are with us here tonight, will want to talk about anything at all besides bringing prices down for average Ohioans, for everyday Ohioans, and saving taxpayers' dollars. They want to make this campaign about CEOs, they want to make it about the ballot language, they want to make it about everything but bringing people's costs down.
But the legal fees are an important part of this ballot initiative, and Chris does have a question I think that can hopefully help clear this up. Half of what we're voting for will be the legal ramifications of Issue 2. So, Chris, your next question?
Yeah, I mean, you used the phrase clearing it up, and I think when I talk to people preparing for this evening, clarity is not a word that comes out of anybody's mouth. There is complete chaos, and I think a lot of folks feel that that's not an accident, that both of you are trying to murky the waters so that folks just maybe don't show up. I want to let Shannon from Columbus weigh in. She asked this question, and it's going to come to you, Matt. Why does issue 2 include something about paying for legal fees and lawyers to uphold the law? I don't understand, she said. If it's supposed to lower medicine prices, why are lawyers needed, and how will that lower medicine costs? Is this just more murkiness?
No, this is understanding what the drug companies, Shannon, thank you for your question. This is understanding what the drug companies do, what they always do. They've done it in the state of Maryland, they've done it in the state of Nevada, they've done it in lots of other places around the country. When the voters speak, and when we finally instruct the politicians about taking these issues seriously and bringing the cost of prescription drugs down for everyday Ohioans and everyday Americans, they go to court, and they try to sue it. They try to sue to stop it. And that's their plan this time. It's a little bit of thou doth protest too much when they keep bringing up this issue. And Colleen, I would just take issue with saying that this is half of the issue. It isn't. It's a very small provision that's in there. And by the way, the Attorney General has already said that he would defend the law. And our petitioners did a conference call with the press this morning where they said that when the Attorney General does defend the law, they won't intervene. They have nothing to do with that. And so I think we're very confident that this isn't going to change a thing in Ohio.
So I would say to the caller that if there's confusion, maybe it's because the Yes campaign has never told voters what's actually in your proposal or how it could possibly work. In fact, I'll bet the first time that many viewers have ever seen the ballot language is when you put it on the screen earlier this night. But here's what there is no confusion about. Issue 2 is opposed by 80 trusted statewide organizations. It would force taxpayers to pay unlimited attorney fees to the sponsors, 3 of whom work for Mr. Weinstein. And the California healthcare CEO who's pushing it, Mr. Weinstein, is an organization that makes 80% of its money selling prescription drugs and only brought it to Ohio when he couldn't get it passed in his own state of California last year.
Understand that unlimited word that Dale just used is a lie. That is not correct. But I also want to just point out to you the premise that he wants you to try to accept tonight. He's saying that, well, Michael Weinstein makes 80% of his money from selling prescription drugs. And yet somehow, and of course what's going to happen is the prices will really go up and he'll make more money. And yet somehow the people who make 100% of their money selling prescription drugs are the people trying to stop this. If anybody believes that, please see me afterwards. I want to talk to you about a bridge in Brooklyn I've got to sell you.
We have another question about legal costs from Mike.
For the no side, we've seen the past 5 years that executives, President Obama and now President Trump, can choose which laws to enforce and which parts of laws to enforce. So the legal provision seems to ensure that the state of Ohio, regardless of who's Attorney General, because we will have a new Attorney General in a couple of years, that it ensures that the state of Ohio will defend this law if voters approve it. Given the deep pockets of the pharmaceutical industry and the powerful political influence that they have, isn't this provision necessary to make sure that the will of the voters is followed?
So what I would say to you, Mike, is that, as I said earlier, this is unprecedented in Ohio history. No law in Ohio history has ever had this provision in it, and neither has any ballot initiative. I do want to get to something that Matt said a moment ago, and that is this. Do you know the only cap, because Matt always says, oh, it talks about reasonable fees. Well, what's reasonable to a California attorney may not be reasonable to Ohio taxpayers. But the only cap that is provided in this legal fee provision is the $10,000 liability limit that Mr. Weinstein and his lawyers wrote into this as for themselves. But, Matt, here's a question for you. If $10,000 was a reasonable liability limit for Mr. Weinstein and his lawyers, why isn't it also a reasonable limit for Ohio taxpayers? Why is there not a $10,000 liability limit for us, only for you?
Well, I'm not here tonight to answer his questions. He's here to answer your questions. And so let me go back to something that you brought up, Mike, and that is that you talked about the federal government. Did you know right now that the federal government, through the Medicare program, is prohibited by federal law from negotiating prices with drug companies at all? If anyone thinks that makes sense, I mean, that's just absolutely crazy. But this is just another example of the way the drug companies rig the system against everyday voters. And so when they can't even negotiate those prices, the market is well out of whack. This is not a free market system that we have right now, and something needs to be done to get control of this process. Again, The drug companies wouldn't be spending this much money if they didn't believe that this was going to cut into their profits. They know that it will, and that's the only motivation that they have to 100% fund this campaign, because if you want lower drug prices, you have to vote yes.
Matt always likes to say, always wants to point to the drug companies, but I want to point out, we have a coalition of 80 organizations that include 28 different medical organizations. Now, here's a question that I think viewers might want to ask themselves. Why would doctors and nurses and hospitals, including children's hospitals in this state, why would they all be opposed to this? Aren't they concerned about their patients? Of course they are. What they're concerned about is they know this won't work, and they understand that there's a double whammy: increased costs for most families and reduced access for some of our most vulnerable people. That's why we have 80 organizations opposed to this.
And Cherie?
Let's go back here, and this is directed at you, Matt. Talk to us about this promise of the $400 million in tax cuts if this is passed. How is that going to happen? How can you guarantee that to the people who are counting on this?
We already know that the state of Ohio pays more for prescription drugs than the VA does. That's undisputed. And so when you take those savings over the 17,500 drugs available in the VA program, we know that it brings those prices down. And we had a Rhodes Scholar from Case Western University, Dr. Max Weinstein, take a look at this, Dr. Max Mellman, excuse me, take a look at this issue, and he concluded that our analysis was correct. And so he understands what that would mean for Ohio voters. And the drug companies understand it too, as I keep going back to. They understand that this would mean significant savings. They understand it would mean a big drop in prices. And they understand that it would be a ripple through the market, a ripple effect through the market that would affect other states and the federal government and other major purchasers. And that's why they want to fight this so hard.
You know, this is just another example of how little the Issue 2, the Yes on 2 campaign, understands about how Ohio purchases drugs. Matt always talks about the 17,000 drugs that are on the VA formulary. That sounds like a big number until you realize that Ohio Medicaid buys 44,000 drugs. In other words, less than half the drugs that are bought by one program in Ohio are on the VA formulary. Now, Medicaid treats mostly women, children, infants, and so forth. What happens when we have to buy drugs that aren't on the VA formulary? Could we still buy them? If so, at what price? We don't know. Issue 2 doesn't say. But if you could buy them at whatever price we're paying now and there's no VA discount, what happens to the $400 million in savings? And as for the tax cut, Issue 2 has not one word in it about a tax cut. This is another outrageous, I don't know how else to say it, untruth that they've been running in television ads. There's not one word about a tax cut in Issue 2.
You get $400 million back in your budget that you don't have to fork over to the big greedy drug companies, and you can have more money for schools. You could give a tax cut to Ohioans. You would have more money for local governments and all kinds of things. But the drug company campaigns funded campaign wants to try to convince you that somehow that's not true, even though on the other side they're threatening to raise prices on everyone else. And then they turn to all the lobbying organizations that are for them. People don't want to hear about what the lobbying organizations care about. They want to know, are we going to be able to bring our prices down and be able to afford our prescription drugs? And with Issue 2, that answer would be yes.
All right, we thank you all for your comments. We have one final comment from your side.
Just want to be clear, the state budget director just today has issued their analysis on this initiative, and they say that Medicaid savings are unlikely because Medicaid is already receiving discounts equivalent to the VA. And they also said that while some of the state programs might benefit if they could really achieve these voluntary agreements to hit prices as low as the VA's, that the administrative cost of those agencies to totally shape how they go about this would likely eat up those savings. They also raised the specter, the state director did, that in fact you might even see cost shifting across drugs that are purchased by the state.
All right, we thank you all, and we hope you've had your questions answered here tonight. Before we leave you, we ask the representatives of the Vote Yes and Vote No campaign to share their final thoughts. Each will have 90 seconds to do so, beginning with the representative of the Vote No campaign, Dale Butland.
Even after this debate, many of you are probably still confused. Which campaign is telling the truth? And who should you believe? Well, instead of trusting either campaign, maybe you should listen to those you already trust. For some of you, that's probably your own doctors, nurses, pharmacists, and hospitals. If so, you should know that almost every medical organization in Ohio says Issue 2 would only hurt you and your families. Others look to policy experts for advice, like former state budget and Medicaid directors who have actually bought the drugs and run the programs that Issue 2 would so greatly affect. Well, everyone who's been in charge of these programs under the past 4 Ohio governors says Issue 2 is a bad idea that won't work. Or maybe you rely on your hometown newspaper to find the truth and ferret it out. If that's you, please know that every major Ohio newspaper that's taken a position is recommending a no vote. So whether you trust policy experts, medical professionals, or your local newspaper, what they all have in common is their opposition to Issue 2. Maybe the real question is who's more likely to have your best interest at heart? Ohioans you know and trust, or a California CEO who wants you to pay his attorney fees? Please think clearly before you vote. There's a lot at stake.
And finally, Matt Borges will share his thoughts from the Vote Yes campaign.
Thank you, Colleen, and thanks to our panelists for your questions, and thanks, of course, to our sponsor for hosting tonight's forum, and to the viewers for tuning in and learning more about Issue 2. What you've seen tonight are 2 campaigns with 2 very different agendas. One campaign is fighting for all Ohioans to save $400 million in taxpayer money and bring the price of prescription drugs down. The other campaign is 100% funded by drug companies. Their goal is to keep the price of drugs as high as they possibly can, and they'll say anything to do it. But what did Don Elder, a World War II Tuskegee Airman from right here in Columbus, say? He said, supporting Issue 2 is the difference between doing what's right and doing what's wrong. And while the drug companies go out of their way to try to confuse voters, a professor of public health at The Ohio State University told the Cleveland Plain Dealer that the idea that this plan is unworkable is wrong. That's why thousands of family physicians from across the state have joined our campaign. These are the people who stand face to face with their patients every day, making sure that they get the help that they need. By passing Issue 2, we'll bring down the prices of prescription drugs and not have to deal with the lies from the drug companies anymore. If you've been waiting for your opportunity to stand up to the big drug companies, this is it. Remember, if you want lower prices on prescription drugs, you have to vote yes, and it's the big greedy drug companies that want you to vote no.
We thank you for joining us tonight for this statewide forum and hope you learned what you need to learn before you vote on Issue 2. Our thanks to The Ohio State University, to the League of Women Voters, and to all of our broadcast partners from all across the state of Ohio. Thank you for joining us.
And we thank you, Colleen. NBC4, your local election headquarters. I'd like to thank everyone for watching the forum on Issue 2, Ohio's prescription vote. We hope you found it very informative.
In case you missed any part of the broadcast, you can find it online at NBC4i.com. Up next, the Blacklist, and we'll see you for the news tonight at 11.
Kemba Financial Credit Union, a better way to bank for humans who need cars.
Now